I absolutely adore my speedlite, and if you're a Canon shooter like me, you'll love your 580EX or EX Mark II. And if you're a Nikon shooter, I'm sure there's something you like too, but I just don't know what you guys are shooting with. So, if you want to shoot two of these guys, one of these is about $580. So if you want a two-light setup, that's pretty much you have to shell out like $1,000. However, things got quite interesting lately, because once again, China came up with a cheap solution for your budget photographers out there. Hello guys, thank you for watching another episode of Art Deco CineLab. This is your host, Rex. Now today we're going to be talking about this speedlight setup here. This is the Yongnuo YN560 Mark III. It's a bit of improvement over the Mark II. Obviously, I've been using my 580EX for quite some time now, and I actually never really owned the second generations of these speedlight here. But I happen to kind of keep looking online, and I've been trying to set up a two-light setup that is a little more efficient than my extremely old Nissan light, which actually doesn't even have any kind of power selection. So these guys are pretty interesting contender. So let me show you what I got here. From the back, some people say that the quality of the back might not be as good as the actual 580 back, but I will say they're fairly close. I mean, the back obviously is something nice to have to carry around, but the light is what I'm really kind of care about. So let's just go right to it. So just like the 580EX, it does come with a little kickstand other than the lights itself, and have that same little compartment that you'll hold it inside your bag. This light here, the construction is actually fairly robust. If you're trying to compare this to the 580EX, of course, it's a little different, but I won't say it's actually any less durable than the 580. It's just, it feels a little different. Some of the features are obviously slightly different as well, just like the little push button switch here. This is actually a full switch, you can't push it down. However, you can pan your head around, and of course you can tilt it around just like you will for a 580. So that's a pretty nice option. Battery is also on the same side, and very much so like the 580, it is powered by 4 AA batteries. Right here I'm just using some rechargeables. You can use regular batteries from the store, but if you're a photographer like myself, you'll be going through these things like cake, so running rechargeable is definitely a great option. Now the back is a little different. I would just go ahead and pull up my 580 for a quick comparison. The screen setup is a little bit different. Again, this is the Mark I, first generations of the 580EX, and this is a Mark III of the YN560. The Canon version have a spinny dial, just like the back of the camera, for you to just choose your power setting. And what we got here is a diagonal switch, but other than that, the layout of the power buttons is the same, pilot lights is the same. And the way how you actually power it on, it's actually kind of funky. I mean, it's really cool. You have to hold down the power button, and it booted. It takes quite some time, and that's one thing that I kind of don't like about this flash. It just takes about 3 to 5 seconds to boot up, and sometimes if you're really running out of time at a wedding shoot or some kind of event photography, that can put your shot in jeopardy here. But after it's boot up, of course, it's totally fine. You have all kinds of settings for your power setting. The side arrow kind of cycle through your power by the increment. It's just kind of like going down from full to half, to quarter, eighth, 16, 32nd, 64th, and 128. But if you do want to go for a smaller increment, you can go for the up and low arrow, which it will go to. It's the same setting you do have like on the 580. You have the 0.3 and 0.7, so pretty much your third setting, and of course it go up one stop, and so on and so forth. Mode is also pretty much the same. You have full manual, you have multi, and you also have the trigger, which I will go through in just a second. And of course, this guy doesn't have a TTL setting like the much more fancier 580, but if you're shooting with a lot of lighting modifier, if you're shooting off camera a lot of times, you don't really need a TTL settings, and I pretty much keep it on manual most of the time. It is a zoomable head, although it is not an auto zoomable head, very much so like the 580, because if you have a zoom lens on the 580, once you start pulling a zoom on your Canon camera, pretty much it will change the zoom for you. This, however, you have to change the zoom manually at the back of the flash head. Of course, once you hit the zoom button, you can already hear the motor is moving your flash unit back when you zoom all the way out. It goes from 24, I believe, to 105. So let's go back to 0. And just like the 580 in the front, you have a front diffuser and a front bounce, which is a nice addition to have. Again, this is not auto head, so when you pull the diffuser out, it is not going to move your head forward for you for a wide angle shot. So you just have to make sure you change your setting in the back to make sure it's at the widest zoom option. Now, it is really cool because just like the 580, you have a light option. But what's really amazing here is you can pair this up with a wireless trigger that Yongnuo also makes. Now, let's go for a little bit of background on the 580. 580, sure, you can do slave master option and have a really sweet switch in the back. It just switched from master to slave very quickly. But there's a lot of people with problem with these guys is because you have to actually align your infrared beam to your outer flash unit for it to work. So if it actually doesn't align, your slave is not going to fire from master. And a lot of times you just end up spending too much time here, so you kind of make sure, you know, if it's like all lineups and stuff out there. But this guy, you don't have to. This is a true digital signal that you will trigger the outer light for a radio code. And it's actually go up to what they claim 100 meter, which is fantastic if that even works. I haven't had a chance to check out that distance yet, you know, on my setup. But the really, really, really cool thing is you can get a transmitter like here. Let me turn this on for you. And you can control different grouping of the speedlight that you have. And it actually can control, I believe, if I remember correctly, 9 groups of speedlight. So you can have 9 of these things, and they all can be dialed in for different power setting, different zoom setting. And this guy just dock immediately on top of your DSLR, and you can just program in whatever thing you have for all your speedlight. And it's actually really simple to use. Some people complain about the Chinglish manual that they come with these guys, but let me tell you, from a Chinese, yes, they're Chinglish, but they're pretty damn good Chinglish. So you'll understand once you read the manual. And what I actually tends to tell people when they kind of set this thing up is, other than the button itself, it noted what the functions are on there. You have that little dash line that link the 2 buttons together, and they tell you another sub-functions of what you get to choose when you hold down those buttons together. So like for instance here, it says CH, which is your channel. So when you hold down these 2, it's pretty much change the channel. This is at GRP, which is group. So when you hold these 2 down, it changes your group. And this is function on the side. When you hold these 2 down, it changes your function. Same thing with your transceiver here. If you hold on these 2, it's to activate, and I'll go for that in a second. And hold on these 2 is clear. Then you just kind of program both these things together. So what I actually got is I got 2 of these. This is another 560 Mark III. And if I have batteries in all these guys, you can actually just program both these lights off of 1 transceiver on top of your camera. But I'm not actually going to go for how you can program these things. I'll post a separate video because that is a whole different story of how you can actually make all these things to work. So from this section here, you can see some of the behind the scene video of a photo shoot that I just did. I acquired these 2 lights last week. Right here you can see the BTS video of Curry and I were out at the National Forest and doing a photo shoot. Sadly, I don't really have to use my second light, so from here it is only a 1 light setup, but I pretty much have to place my light, facing away from me on the river, and it's shooting on my 57-inch bounce umbrella. Then I don't really have to kind of go out there and reach out to the back of the monolight to actually change the setting. I just kind of dial in my setting on top of my camera. Then we trying to change out the setup a little bit. I raised my flash unit really high up to the side of me. Then in the shot here, you can see we pretty much have Corey standing on the tree trunk there. And I was just shooting up at her. Flash unit is up about like 7 feet up in the air, so I actually can't physically really reach it very easily. But with this transmitter, I can dial in my setting just on my fingertips. Then here, which actually don't have a behind-the-scene video, but you can see from the shot, it's around sunset, around the lake. We made an outfit change, but this time we have our speedlight in a speedlight softbox, which I also have a review video of. And the diffusers actually cover the unit control, so I can actually physically access those buttons, or I can't even see the screen because the diffuser just cover everything up. Then I can change my setting really quickly with this transmitter just on top of the camera without actually pulling back my diffuser every time. Do the setting, tape it back up, and keep shooting. So this really absolutely speed up the process quite a bit. I'll go to performance a little bit because obviously these guys are not as high performance as a 580. Cycling rates are fairly fast, but it is a tad bit slower than the 580. Even on the Mark 1, the Mark 2 it cycles even faster than that. But these guys, we were shooting on a really cold day. The weather was about 45 Fahrenheit outside, and the first thing I actually got to set, the battery's gotten so cold in the car from our transit to the site. It's actually they thought that it's depleted the batteries, but it's actually not. It's just it takes a while for it to warm back up again before we actually shoot. At that point, it pretty much takes about 15 seconds to recycle the batteries, but once the batteries warm up again, it did speed up quite a bit, even at full power. So I guess it's kind of come down to the final verdict. Will I recommend these to photographers out there? Absolutely. Yongnuo made some transmitter. Even without these kind of built-in unit, they already have a transmitter that you can dial in your little settings. But with this guy, with this setup, you can either use your head directly to control your slave, because you can order without the transmitter itself, and just use one of your speedlight as a master, and it can drive a slave. You don't even need a trigger for that. But once you get this guy, you can change all the setting right on your camera, which is, I think it really helps out on a budget shoot when you don't have the budget to hire an assistant and you're just out there by yourself. This makes things quite a bit easier for you. So I actually highly recommend you to use this. And of course, you can run an external battery pack for it. And also have a sync cord plug on the side. So if you do want to speed up your cycle rate a little bit, you have the option to do that as well. And I guess also comparing the YN560 Mark III to a 580 head from Canon is, I don't believe they have any weather seal. So if you're shooting in extreme weather condition, that might be concern for you. You'll be shocked if you actually start shopping for these. Instead of $560 or $580, you spend about $70. Yes, about $70. You can have a unit that has performed pretty much just as good as your 580. And if you want to pick up a transmitter or transceiver, this is about $55 for a Canon unit. Now I'll actually go ahead and show you the box here real quick. So this is how it's kind of come in the shipping box. And quite frankly, I really do like the design of their packaging. They actually have some thought put into this guy. It reminds me of like a old school, like a Nikon, product with that gold trim and the black background, and they have all these like crazy fancy little logo or icon to tell you what these guys can do. And it's just packed really neatly in the little box, a little shipping package. And there you have it. $200 for 2 speedlight and a transmitter. Can't beat that. You can't even buy half of a 580 Mark 1. Alright, I believe I've come to an end for another episode of Art Deco Cinelab. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video and review, please do subscribe to my channel. It is the best way to support me. Once again, thank you very much for watching. This is Rex. I'll see you next time.